Well, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives dropped another season this week, and so of course I had to give myself a blowout and talk to y'all about Mormons. But today we are not talking about the role that women play in Mormon culture. We're not necessarily discussing the practices of the fundamentalists or polygamy like I've covered so many times on this channel. Today, we are talking about something that didn't necessarily surprise me, but it's still equally heartbreaking as news that would otherwise be absolutely mind blowing. So, everyone likes to joke about Arkansas, Alabama, all these people marrying their cousins, and there being some genetic mutations that cause disabilities in children. But what if I told you that the predominant area in the entire world that is breeding children with very rare disabilities is actually an FLDS community right along the Arizona-Utah border? Yes, that's true. I mean, you would probably believe me, right? So today we are going to talk about the fumarase deficiency epidemic, really, that is honestly way too common in these fundamentalist polygamist communities. So sit back, relax, and take a deep breath. It's time to let the fresh air in. Hi everyone, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Erin, and I am fascinated by all things cults, scams, spiritual beliefs, and shadiness, and with some true crime sprinkled in there. I'm starting to just kind of talk about anything that I find intriguing, strange, weird, because my curiosity kind of leads this channel. So if you're into that sort of things and also like to be educated but don't want to spend hours upon hours researching topics like this, then this is the channel for you. And I have a ton of content planned for y'all. So if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. I would absolutely love to have you here in our, I hate to say community because that feels a little culty to say, but nevertheless, I'd love to have you here. We have a really cool group of people that gives some great insights. You commenters are always giving me something else to think about, which I appreciate. Gotta love that critical thinking. Anyways, guys, we are going to go ahead and jump right in. So on the Arizona-Utah border, beneath towering red sandstone cliffs, lie the twin towns of Colorado City, Arizona, and Hilldale, Utah, together known as Short Creek, which is home to the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or FLDS. Here, straining under the desert sun, polygamous families live almost entirely cut off from the outside world. It's a remote landscape that kind of hides a quiet crisis. Because inside this community of roughly 8,000 people, most of whom still practice plural marriage, there are dozens of children suffering from a catastrophic genetic illness. Pediatric neurologist Dr. Theodore Tarby observed that these families are really kind of remarkable people. They do treat these kids pretty well despite the odds. But can we really praise these parents if their belief system and commune style living and practices are likely the leading cause of this genetic disorder? Former FLDS member Faith Bisline says that all 5 of her young cousins were born with the disorder, and now, as they're older, they're completely disabled, bedbound, and on feeding tubes, and are cared for around the clock by their parents. The victims' faces often blur into anonymity, but their suffering is real and visible. One photograph shows an FLDS mother supporting her disabled toddler, one of several children in the sect that are afflicted with the disease. For many families, what begins as a puzzling set of symptoms turns into a devastating diagnosis with symptoms like epileptic fits, profound developmental delays, and oddly dysmorphic features. Whether it's unusual facial features like prominent foreheads, widely spaced eyes, or small jaw. For other children, it's a little more of a silent challenge, with their development just being too slow for them to really live without the support of their family members. Children even learn to walk very briefly, but then regress after having relentless seizures. Some of these people are growing up into their 30s and they can't even crawl on their own. They can't feed themselves, they can't dress themselves, they'll never be able to speak or be toilet trained. They all have IQs under 25. So, how did this come to be, and how was it so centralized in one area? Because this is such a rare disorder. I think there's only been about 100 cases across the globe as far as I know and what I came to understand from my research. And a whopping 20% of the worldwide number of those afflicted are all centralized to Short Creek. 20 out of 100 of documented cases of this essentially degenerative disease are found in a Mormon commune. So, how did this even come to be? Well, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that FLDS Mormons were fleeing the legal banishment of polygamy. In the 1930s, the sex leaders Joseph Smith Jessup and John Y. Barlow settled here in this area because they wanted to find what they called a closed-door community. Because the Mormon mainstream had renounced that plural marriage, these fundamentalists wanted to live apart in their own insular society, or cult. So today, most men in Short Creek have multiple wives. Church doctrine even suggests that they must have at least 3 wives for eternal salvation, and polygamous weddings are arranged by the FLDS leadership alone, including child marriages to child brides. I covered a lot of this in this video here. I highly recommend you watching my Mormon playlist because it's quite damning, ironically. Now, few outsiders ever enter Short Creek, and few from Short Creek ever marry out. And one local historian even noted that 75 to 80% of current residents descend from those 2 founders, Jessup and Barlow. So, for almost 100 years, this community has been inbreeding, leading to this tiny area effectively being infected with a degenerative disease that barely has affected anyone in the entire world. And then we have people praising these parents who are directly contributing to this because they're having these weird familial intermarriages, inter-incourse. They're really blurring the lines between what a family is and isn't. I mean, it's honestly hard to tell. So over 100 years of inbreeding, it's honestly shocking that when there's a cluster of this disease in one area, that they wouldn't stop and think like, could we potentially be contributing to this? It's really, really sad that And look, I obviously believe that any person who is afflicted by any disease, physically or otherwise, deserves the same amount of love and care and nurturing and education to anyone who is more able-bodied. But I think if you know the cause, it's only detrimental to children being born within your community if you're going to continue the pattern, because all you're doing is creating a life that's going to be very, very, very difficult for these children to live when you could just not sleep with a close family member and change the entire trajectory of your child's life. It's really, really sad in a way to me, because this is basically a genetic mutation over 100 of years that's just being clustered in this one place because this cult believes that they deserve to have a bunch of wives. And I hope I'm not coming across as like insensitive. That's obviously not my goal. I think if you're someone who's been watching my channel for a long time, you know I have the utmost empathy for survivors and people who are in cults and trying to get out. I mean, you don't know until you know. And these poor people are isolated completely from the outside world. There literally aren't any new people coming in. It's a closed door and the gene is just getting passed around. And that's directly coming from a trust administrator that manages the FLDS's assets, because these are centuries old customs of cousin marriage and quote unquote royal bloodline preservation that have amplified the effect. And also, it's inherently a little white nationalist when you think about we have to keep things in the family and maintain this royal bloodline. It kind of inherently creates a sense of racial bias, racism within the communities too. And so to justify your behavior by wanting a pure bloodline, but you're creating lives that are going to have to deal with immense challenges well into adulthood, I just don't know if that's fair. So what exactly is this genetic mutation? It's called fumarase deficiency, and it is normally so rare that up until 1990, there were only 13 cases that were known worldwide. Now, that is an insanely rare number, and in fact, half of the known cases right now, if they're not already in Utah, they are tied to Utah in some way, meaning maybe somebody left that area and went on to have a child that was impacted by this deficiency. Doctors and geneticists say that Short Creek children are over 1 million times more likely to be born with this disorder than the average person. 1 million. And one study in The Independent quoted community doctors saying that they had found those 20 affected children locally, in contrast to just those 13 cases known everywhere else combined. Now, this deficiency is a genetic disorder, and it's very recessive. It means that a child must inherit a non-functional FH gene from both parents in order to be afflicted. So in scientific terms, which I'm not a scientist, but chime in if you know more than me about genetics, this FH gene encodes the enzyme fumarase, and then that converts fumarate into something else during cellular respiration. And without this functional fumarase, a patient's cells, especially their neurons, can't actually complete energy production. So as Reuters reported, quote, brain cells fail to receive enough fuel, essentially, because there's a missing enzyme that's needed to generate that energy from food. So basically, it means that the food that you're eating for that energy cannot be converted and utilized in the body or the brain. So it causes severe mental slowness and even muscle control problems. So literally, these children, their brains are being starved for energy. Now, clinically, the disorder presents within the first few days of life. Newborns may show hypotonia or floppy muscles, poor feeding, and even seizures. And as far as I know, I don't know if I've ever had a seizure, but I've seen a friend of mine have a seizure, and it was really scary, and it looks incredibly painful. And if you are someone who's epileptic or you've had seizures before, please let us know down below. But I really feel like a seizure's got to be so painful. It's got to feel painful and so scary because you've lost control of your body. But I just can't imagine the poor pain these children were feeling. And neuroimaging has revealed profound damage to the children, like cortical atrophy, enlarged ventricles, and underdevelopment of the brainstem. Most of these children are nonverbal, non-ambulatory, and they will remain for almost the rest of their lives at the developmental level of infants. Life expectancy is short. I mean, some survive into adolescence and adulthood, but they are severely impaired. As Dr. Kirk Alec, who is a pediatric neurologist who has treated FLDS patients, puts it, quote, "The kids have terrible seizure disorders and developmental delays," unquote, and few progress beyond an infant's abilities. And if you think about how rare this deficiency is, there's worldwide a 1 in 400 million chance that anyone will ever get this genetic disorder. But in Short Creek, most of the couples share the exact same ancestry. Each polygamous man may father dozens of children with multiple wives, and all of them intermarry. So these are carriers from the Jessup and Barlow lines, just keep marrying each other and passing this on. Dr. Tarby even warned the community and said that the only way to halt new cases would be to ban marriages within the gene pool or terminate those affected fetuses. And obviously, FLDS leaders are going to refuse this. And instead, the birth rates remain extremely high. Even Utah officials estimate that thousands of Short Creek residents now carry at least one copy of the FH mutation. They're all just these oblivious carriers in a very tight-knit society. So as we've briefly touched on, the FLDS community's response to all of this has really just been shaped by their cultic faith and isolation. Their religion teaches that you need to accept life's trials as God's will, and for many families, these children are seen as a divine test. They will say, if God wants that for you, then that's what you will get. Isaac Weiler, a former FLDS member, observed that even if parents know their child's illness stems from cousin marriage, they interpret it as providence, a test from God. So in practice, this means that the community just quietly lives with the problem, and advice from outsiders is going to be mistrusted or ignored. Arizona's Children's Rehabilitative Services even once sent teams into Colorado City to examine affected children, but then pulled back after media scrutiny scared families from appointments. And today, state-funded therapists drive into the region, and Utah's developmental services provide home nurses to help with bathing, feeding, and lifting the heavy children. Mothers continue to feed their children through tubes and change diapers on adults that will never be toilet trained. One FLDS mother, by luck according to her, has 3 sister wives and says that having sister wives is a godsend in offering help to care for such a child. And while the FLDS lives in their bubble, a modest genetic outreach has begun. Researchers have mapped the FH mutation on chromosome 1 responsible for these FLDS cases. Dr. Vinod Narayanan of Phoenix is now seeking funding to create a screening test. He envisions voluntary blood draws from community members tested at a genomics lab. The goal would be to identify carriers before marriage. And at an estimated $50 per test, such a program could reveal exactly who carries the mutant gene. And this information could then hypothetically inform marriage decisions or prenatal planning. But as Tarby notes, even a golden scientific opportunity may go untapped. The FLDS don't think anything written by Colorado City carries much truth, unquote. And I'm also pretty sure they don't trust modern medicine. So I don't know if getting them to pay $50 for a genetic test is a realistic goal to have, unfortunately. Now, learning about the fumarase deficiency in the FLDS has been really heartbreaking, but also a good lesson because it's weaving together these intimate human tragedies. You know, we don't want to have infants who are never walking or speaking or are experiencing painful seizures every day. It's oftentimes a joke, right? Whether it's a Mormon community or, joking about people in the South marrying their cousins and being inbred. People like to make jokes about it. But the harsh reality is that there are genetic mutations that develop when inbreeding is happening, especially over generations, over decades, over even centuries. And that's specifically what we're talking about here. And it's really, really tragic for a religious community to be, or cult, to be contributing directly to causing more hardships for human beings while trying to maintain that they are living this God-fearing, holy, better than thou life. And it really is causing a painful life for these children. I mean, it's not hard to not sleep with your cousin. I feel like this is what makes the FLDS so insidious because, and honestly, any cult, because you can present them with so much scientific, real life, tested proof that something they are doing is not just wrong, but detrimental to the members of their community, and they will still not listen. They will still not be able to recognize that their behavior is contributing to a problem that could otherwise be solved if they changed their ways slightly. And that's what's really heartbreaking about people in cults. They're ingrained with this us versus them mentality that makes it so they can never believe anything an outsider ever says to them. And that's really so incredibly tragic. I hope that this video educated you. I don't know if you feel like I do, where I'm like, this is really, it's like shocking, but not shocking. It's like shocking, but not surprising, I guess I should say. So yeah, yet another Mormon video. If you like videos like this, where maybe it's not necessarily like an intense deep dive about a cult, just maybe like an idiosyncrasy that's kind of been born from a cult's behavior, let me know. I feel like I've done so many cult deep dives over, honestly, I think the last, has it been 3 years almost already? Yeah, I think this is my 3rd year doing this channel, and I've done, several deep dives, probably hundreds of videos, and there's always something new, some new piece of information that's not always enough content for like a long deep dive. So if you like these kind of more like nuggets of cause and effect type of situations that are happening because of cult behavior, let me know, because I do find that fascinating. And a cult-led genetic mutation that is making the lifespan of children shorter and making their life as a whole far more difficult, that's directly related to the beliefs within a cult, is something we've never talked about before on this channel. So I find that really, really fascinating, and hopefully it helps to get people, out of that mindset if they come across this video. But anyways, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate your time, and thank you so much. Please don't forget to leave your comments down below. And if you want to talk with me about Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, let me know, because I would love to just hop on a live and chat with y'all, because it is probably my favorite shit show though. Anyways, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate your support. Stay safe out there. Ask questions and always stay skeptical. I'll see you in my next video soon. Bye.